this is the best anime out right now. What do I mean? So obviously I'm going to name drop this show. It is Cyberpunk Edgerunner. Now, why is this the best anime out right now, or just plainly of the year, period? So one, I'm going to start with the obvious, and that this is a cyberpunk setting, which is wonderful. It's a great setting that takes place in a dystopian future that's just amazing to experience. It's cringy, it's realistic, it's wonderful. Now, does the show actually capitalize on this setting? Well, I would hope so. Basically, what I want to say is that the cyberpunk setting is more than just a look. It is actually genuinely a way of life in which that this is kind of supposed to be portrayed. So it's why this anime turns that and does this adaptation to perfection. So it's an original story that takes place, and it does a wonderful amount of amazing things. And that has to do with the way that it portrays the world, and that it has outlaws and criminals, vigilantes, not to mention where the things about the show are amazing, and I'll get more into that. So I want to say that this is a story about a young boy named David. Basically, he lives in the city with his mother, and he tries to scrape by, but it's hard when his mother is paying every cent possible to go to a prestigious school to hopefully get a better future and be able to thrive and not have to be bummed down like basically they are right now. Now, the only problem with this is Cyberpunk and the Night City, where things aren't as easy as they seem, or they just keep hitting you down. And well, with this being one of them, things don't go as planned when he starts to have to skip school or try to find cheap ways to stay up to date and go to the school. And he finds a ripdoc that can hopefully rig things together so that he can keep going here and try to fulfill what is basically his mother's dream. So he keeps going to school only basically for his mom at this point. So when things do take a very dark turn because he ends up skipping school and messing up, his mom comes down to school and has to basically get chewed out there with him about his actions and why not to do certain things. And on their car ride home, they get into a car accident, and all caused by a street gang. And it turns out to be a pretty brutal accident, and he has to sit there and cry out for help and watch his lifeless mother in front of him, calling for her, right in front of him. Flashing to a point where he's there at the cremation center and is getting told that his mom is not going to make it with his basic ass plan that she has. And so they basically have to let him go home with his mom in a ash urn, and he starts trucking home with the belongings that were in his mother's car at the time, and goes back home to an apartment that he can't afford and is locked out of. So just when things are at his absolute worst, he can't seem to find a reason to want to live really right now anymore. Doesn't even have time to honestly process anything. So he does what he saw in his mother's belongings and ends up finding that it was a Militech spine, a piece of cyberware. So, not knowing what to do and one of the only resorts and last things from his mother, he takes this piece of cyberware and goes over to the ripdoc to have it implemented. So, this is where he learns he has a high tolerance for cyberware and everything of the sorts. So, after going to the cyberdoc, has this superpower where he can basically warp through time a lot faster than people. Basically a super speed, if you will. Well, and at this point, he goes back home. He hops on a train just to see that someone is pickpocketing people. And then once this person gets to him, he finds out it's this girl named Lucy, where he stops her from pickpocketing him, and she pulls him aside to say something to him, offering a deal to be able to work with her. He then realizes that maybe this is my only option now. So he basically, drops out of school, not shortly after beating the shit out of his classmate, then goes with this girl named Lucy, and turns out they start to hang out and have more in common. But this is where she kind of takes a turn and shows that they are part of a group where she is a part of, and they are introduced to the cyberpunks. And this is where the story basically takes a turn and starts ramping forward on the overall story with the writing and just kind of following along with these characters. Now, speaking of characters, I think that they are wonderfully done. Everyone here feels like an actual person, let alone a person in this setting, which is way harder than just trying to portray normal emotions we already know about, but not even trying to portray these absolute absurd circumstances with emotions that we have no idea how we would feel or go through them. Everything that comes on this screen seems so realistic that it's a little jarring at points to be able to realize, like, damn, this is how someone would actually act in this sort of scenario, which is wild to begin with. So with these crazy scenarios and this being the Night City, things get pretty heated. And I just want to say that one other reason that this show is so amazing is because of the art. Now, the art is absolutely wonderful. That includes the environment, the overall art style, which does take inspiration from the game of Cyberpunk 2077, which does have a few matching environments that you would be able to pinpoint from the game, which is pretty cool because then it leaves this bit of an Easter egg when you go back to the game or the show and you can see these places that were brought to life on a moving screen with a story that you loved. Now, the other reason is that the character models are amazing. Everyone looks like they belong. No one looks extremely normal, or if they felt like they've been through hell, they look it too, which is important to try to be able to cast this narrative of this city being so daunting. Now, this is a daunting atmosphere because it is also ran by extreme corporations and military tech and just basically like Elon Musk's, but on steroids, and got overrun with absolute vultures of people. So this is a horrible scenario, and so the common person just trying to get by is down bad in this city. But most people come to this location because it is one of the only places left where they can potentially make something of themselves, which, to be honest, most don't. This is a horrible place to live, but you have to make the most out of it. And the main issue is that it can be an amazing place to live if you make something out of it. So it's a little bit freaky how dystopian this is with the feeling and atmosphere. Like, we're not too far off from just being a cyberpunk setting nowadays. But I will say that the music is one of the other big drawing points. Obviously, you've probably seen the overwhelming amount of memes and the playlist settings and all this for this show, and that's because the stinking music, this stinking music is absolutely wonderful. It goes great with the show. It's emotional, it's visceral, it feels good. It is awesome. You get hyped, you get overwhelmed, you get destroyed emotionally by crying your fucking eyes out. But yeah, it goes together like a fine wine with crackers. I don't know if that's supposed to go together really, but you understand what I'm saying. And that's why this is one of the greatest shows to be released this year. So, if you want to find out more about this show, go ahead and check it out on Netflix, Cyberpunk Edgerunner. And if you don't know anything about the game, you should probably go ahead and play it. I played through it about twice now, and it has been wonderful. Played it through when it released at a baller PC, so I didn't have too much trouble when it did release. But then I did start a little bit of a replay about a few months ago already because of the updates they were applying to the game. So yeah, if you're interested, go ahead and just experience Cyberpunk. It's a wonderful atmosphere that is very nice. There are positives in it. The game is definitely more positive than the show, so if you were wondering. But yeah, I would go ahead, give it a look, give it a likesy. Same with this video, drop a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video.